Hello! Gotta make sure everything is working. Let's see. Okay. I think we're good. Let's get back to it. The cops were smart enough to separate us during questioning. Oishi didn't come to talk to me. His aim was Satoshi-kun and nobody else. I got a young cop who just talked about ordinary things. He must have been trying to ease me into the interrogation. When I realized that, the clumsy way he spoke began to frustrate me. Is Satoshi-kun alright? I didn't think Oishi really bought my testimony. He must have been trying to get Satoshi-kun to confess in spite of that. All I could do was pray that he'd keep quiet. The phone on the desk rang, and the cop picked it up. This is Kumagai? What? Alright, I understand. Thank you for the sub, Battler. Also, welcome. How are you doing? Hello, hello. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Right away. He hung up and told me that somebody had come to retrieve me. Looked like Satoshi-kun had to stay. Were they going to continue the interrogation just because he had nobody to pick him up? Although, maybe I should have been worrying more about myself. It's been a while, but you're back? Welcome back. I'm glad to see you. How have you been? The hag had probably heard about me by now, since I revealed my real identity to the police. I couldn't hide any longer. I was going to receive some sort of punishment. I had no idea what she'd end up doing to me. The degree of punishment for a traitor is always severe in the world of the Sonozakis. The punishment must be carried out. If it's to protect the family's reputation, it's carried out no matter what. Maybe I should kiss my pinky finger while I still can. You're good? Finally got a job? Ooh, what job? Congratulations! I'm happy to hear that. Let me play an applause. Hold on. There you go. Congratulations. I asked the young cop just in case. Hey, did you know that in America, if a condemned criminal gets arrested in a state which has been banned capital punishment, they'll refuse to surrender him to the state prosecuting him if that state hasn't banned it? Huh? Maybe it was too difficult for him. He just looked puzzled. A glossy black car was waiting for me in front of the police station. A few men from my dad's office bowed to me. It's been a long time, Shion-san. Where's Kasai? Kasai had been helping me ever since my escape from the school. They wouldn't allow him to walk free. How's Sis doing? Does she have something to say about this? We were only told to bring you to the main house. Please ask her when you get there. After saying that, he escorted me to the car. A man sat on either side of me. Obviously, they didn't want me to escape. Thinking of Satoshi-kun, I looked back at the police station. Hold on tight, Satoshi-kun. I'll grin and bear it too. Physical work like removing snow and lifting things from one place to another? Probably not for everyone, but I like it. Oh, well, I'm glad you like it. That's good. I definitely could not handle that, but I am flimsy and weak, so it makes sense. I'm doing good, though. I feel like my cough is finally going away. I haven't coughed too much today, so that's a good sign. More reading for me. The car started off roughly. It was never a good occasion when I went to this house. Except when Mion and I were really small, oblivious of what the Sonozaki name meant for us. Good to hear. Yeah, I'm so glad that I'm finally over this. It's been like 2 weeks. I'd only been here when I had to attend boring family councils. The car parked behind the house. Traders aren't allowed in through the main gate. I got out of the car. It looked like Sis would be the only person to receive me. I almost spoke to her casually, but her cold gaze froze me before I could. It's been a while, Shion. I never expected to see you other than on New Year's. It gave me the chills to hear her greet me in that cold manner. It's a pleasure to see you again, Mion-sama. I feel overjoyed to have the chance to see you other than on New Year's. I responded, trying to sound likewise. Our leader is deeply upset. I wonder how you'll explain yourself. I have nothing to explain. I had no excuse. I'd escaped from the school solely because I couldn't stand it there. That was all. Shion, come this way. Everyone is waiting for you. Mion escorted me, and the others followed. We went to the garden, not into the house. As we passed through the huge yard in the woods, I realized where she was taking me. When we were little, we were told never to go near these woods. I had a vague idea of what was in the back of them. I'd heard there was a hidden entrance to the underground torture room, where they used to punish the enemies of the family. The more hideous rumors I heard about the family, the more credible those rumors seemed. Well, I wasn't completely certain about any of that. I never expected to see the torture room for myself. We came to a concave clearing in the middle of the woods. I saw a metal door at the bottom of it. The door reminded me of a bomb shelter. So this is the underground torture room, huh? I was surprised to hear my own voice. My voice was trembling. It made me realize that I was more scared than I thought. Nobody answered my question. The very air felt tense. According to the family rules, one of the twins must be eliminated. Was I finally going to be eliminated? I realized I had been underestimating my punishment. I hadn't been aware of the real terror until now. I just thought I was. Beyond the steel door, the air had an intimidating smell. This really was happening to me. I shouldn't allow myself to give in to fear. I felt like saying something rude, but my lips were dry, and my fingers were fidgeting. I was escorted through the narrow hallway and down a few sets of stairs. There, I saw another huge steel door. So this was the place. It was spacious and utterly odd-looking. It was a spacious and utterly odd-looking room. The room had two sections that looked completely different. One side looked like a lounge. I saw several high-ranking members of the family council sitting on cushions there, looking expressionless. The other half was tiled, as if in a large public bath. That was already puzzling enough. And there were those things. To be honest, they had captured my attention from the moment I arrived. I noticed them even before I saw the lounge and tiled space. I just didn't want to accept that they existed. I couldn't stand straight. I almost dropped to my knees, but I couldn't. Two young men had been holding me by the arms since I got here. There were oddly shaped things hanging from the wall. I was just refusing to recognize what they were. I knew exactly what they were called. I see. I understood that those eerily shaped objects were torture devices from hell. Darn fool! How dare you return? The hag, sitting at the front of the lounge, intimidated me in a horrid voice. She kept cursing me for a little while, but she was so incensed that I could barely tell what she was saying. I knew what she was trying to say, though. The hag was willing to forgive my escape from the school, but once I revealed my identity to the police, she had to step in. Since I had disobeyed the family rule, she, as the leader, was forced to punish me. Moreover, there was one thing that bothered her more than anything else. The fact that I covered for Satoshi-kun. The Hojo family had been seen as traitors to the village ever since the dam conflict. Satoshi-kun is still considered one of them. She couldn't accept that I was connected to him. To me, this was a bit unexpected. I'd escaped from the school the hag had put me in. All the while, I believed that was what she was upset about. But in fact, she said that she was the most uncomfortable with my connection with Satoshi-kun. I couldn't believe this. Of course I knew that Satoshi-kun's family was persecuted for their betrayal. But I didn't think that Satoshi-kun was also burdened with that responsibility. He has nothing to do with that. I understand that his parents were ostracized, but he shouldn't be. Shut the hell up! The hag interrupted me with a shout, which made me cower in fear. She continued slandering the Hojos, and said that Satoshi-kun was a cursed child. I started feeling pissed off. What did he do to deserve this? Why is that so hard to read? What was he being blamed for? It was too late when I realized I'd said that out loud. The hag looked furious. I'd obviously upset her. I decided to repeat myself, to make it very clear how I felt. What are you saying, you old hag? Everything you've spouted is nonsense. Huh? Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Shut up and let me finish. I shouted loudly to silence the hag. What do you know about Satoshi-kun? How could you talk about him like he's some pest when you don't know anything about him? I know how sweet he is. You don't like him because he's a Hojo? How stupid is that? Is even your brain archaic or what? You hate the fact that a Sonozaki is with a Hojo that much? That's not just stupid. That's beyond stupid. Boy, I never expected to feel like Juliet. My voice became hoarse from shouting. My face was messy with tears. Even so, I didn't feel like putting a stop to my emotional explosion. I was all too aware that I was doing this just to overwhelm my fear. The hag was glaring at me while breathing heavily. I glared back at her as fiercely as I could. Eventually, I realized that her sticking point was my relationship with Satoshi-kun. She wasn't only upset that I had a mere connection with him. I see. Looks like Mion mentioned that too. It was as though Mion was wearing a mask. She didn't budge under my penetrating glare. That was what the hag was really unhappy about. The fact that I was in love with Satoshi-kun. I don't give a crap about his family background or my own. Yeah, I'll admit that I'm in love with him. I love Satoshi Hojo-kun. I love him so much. Is that so wrong? Do you need a reason to love somebody? I could see the relatives shaking their heads in turmoil. Among them, I saw my mom. She must have been trying to protect me. But even she wouldn't look at me. Instead, she looked silently at the floor. Did you guys in the back hear me? Am I wrong? You'd know how sweet Satoshi-kun is in an instant if you bothered to get to know him. How could you put him down without... Mion held out a hand to silence me. Then, she slowly walked in my direction. That's enough, Shion. I understand what you wanted to say. Mion put her head close to mine and whispered. Shion, I know how you feel, but you can't go back after coming this far. You have to pay for what you did. What did I do? Why me? That's ridiculous. Shion. Mion's face turned cold again, and she calmly told me. You're probably right, but this is Hinamizawa, and we are Sonozakis, as I'm sure you can understand. We are the leaders of the three families, and you are the twin sister of the successor, Mion Sonozaki. Yet, I had interrupted her. We haven't agreed on that matter ever since I came back. You're full of this reputation crap. Hinamizawa? The Sonozakis? So what? I don't give a heck about... Listen! Mion interrupted me, just like I did her. How many people did you depend on to start your new life in Okinomiya? Chills shot through my spine. Kasai-san is in a cell at the back. Why? Why Kasai? I knew why, of course. The moment I got caught, those who helped me were destined to meet the same fate. We were all subject to the punishment of betrayal. Maybe my punishment would be lighter than what they'd be going through. Kasai and Uncle Yoshiro must have been treated much worse than this. Everybody who helped me was falling victim. I know that you're prepared for your punishment, but have you ever thought of the consequences that Kasai-san and Uncle Yoshiro would have to face? My head rapidly cooled down. My aggression was all used up. I should be able to bear whatever punishment they'd bring on me, but I resented the fact that I'd be putting the people who supported me at risk. Shion, apologize to Granny. If you do, the others won't have to suffer. Alright? But Mion, did I really do something wrong? Was any of what I did that bad? The moment Mion learned that I wasn't willing to apologize, her expression turned cold again. She turned her back to me and returned to the lounge. I'd talked back to the hag in a really harsh manner. I told her that I didn't do anything wrong. Yet I had involved many people to whom I owed so much. It went without saying, this was my responsibility. I was the sole person to blame, and no fault lay with them. Yes, Kasai and Yoshiro-san were blameless, just as Satoshi-kun was. But then, as if she read my mind, Mion turned around and gave a slight nod. Thank you for the alert, kimono. It was possible that something was going to happen to Satoshi-kun, on top of Kasai and Uncle Yoshiro. Wait! Sis! That can't happen. Satoshi-kun, nobody else should be punished. Please forgive them. What is it, Shion? Tears rolled down my cheeks. I no longer cared about my pride. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please forgive me. I should have said what the hag wanted to hear, yet she still looked unsatisfied. Maybe that wasn't too surprising. I had just denounced her so badly in front of the relatives. She wouldn't forgive me so easily. Just then, Mion spoke as the successor. So, Shion, how do you propose to pay for this? Pay? What do you want me to do? Nothing could be scarier than being told to pay up while standing next to horrid-looking torture devices. I was completely terrified. I couldn't move from trembling. Mion saw that and whispered to our grandmother. The hag nodded. Mion summoned some young minions and gave them an order. They removed one of the torture devices hanging on the wall, then set a table in front of me and put the device on top of it. What is this? It's a tool for removing fingernails. Do you know how to use it? No way. I shook as I stared at the tool. It looked like a giant nail clipper. You probably put the part that looks like a beak between your finger and fingernail, pulling them apart if you squeeze the handle. The chills ran up and down my spine when I imagined that. Each fingernail represents one of your responsibilities. Shion Sonozaki, no matter which ones you choose, you must remove 3 nails yourself. 3. 1 for Kasai, 1 for Uncle Yoshiro, and the last for Satoshi-kun. You remember this part of the anime? It is the iconic scene, right? Also, welcome, Proxy. It was a fairly reasonable number. Will you really not punish the others? Promise me. Oh, promise me. Please let them go if I do this. This is a punishment, not a negotiation. If you don't like the procedure, I'll do it! Just give me a second. I'm doing it. I put the device to my little finger while shaking badly. If my fingernail were shorter, it would have been harder. The metal beak captured my little finger beautifully. The subordinates then stabilized my left hand with a different restraining tool. That seemed reasonable, because my finger would slip out if it weren't restrained like that. As the subordinates buckled up the leather straps, I realized that this was really happening, and there was no escape. Somewhere in my mind, I'd been thinking that they might forgive me after just the gesture alone. I shouldn't have been so naive. The emotions I'd been holding back appeared in the form of tears and kept rolling down my cheeks. It was like my feelings were being squeezed out until the very last drip. Something even more horrifying followed this. It was the silence that awaited my next action. So, what should I do now? One of the subordinates pointed to the handle and told me to either squeeze it or hit it. He recommended that the latter would be easier to make it quick. Nobody said anything after that. There was nothing to hear but the sound of my sweat dripping onto the floor. The onlookers were staring at me silently, waiting for me to execute my punishment. Both the hag and Mion. They were also anticipating it. I could refuse, but that meant I wouldn't be paying up. This punishment exists to offer payment in exchange for the safety of those who helped me. If I refused, they would suffer. I started breathing heavily. I knew that if I did this, the others would go free. This was, if you thought about it, quite a good deal. If it weren't for me, it wouldn't be just 3 fingernails. If it were Kasai, he'd have to sacrifice his little finger, or something even worse. I knew that. It was my selfish desire to get away from that school. Why did Kasai have to suffer because of that? I knew that. Why did Uncle Yoshiro have to suffer just because he provided me with a job? I knew that the hag and the other relatives still hated the Hojos. So I didn't know what they'd do to Satoshi-kun if I didn't do this. Would they bring Satoshi-kun here and tell him to do the same? Would they tell him to remove his fingernails in exchange for forgiving me? He'd do it. He'd sacrifice himself with no hesitation in order to save others. My sweat dripped off the table through my nose. I'd do it. Yes. It was only 3 fingernails. It might hurt a lot, but I wouldn't die. The fingernails would grow back. It wouldn't even leave a huge scar. I shouldn't be afraid. The punishment was minimal because it was me. If I refused to do this, the others would be punished much more severely. I couldn't let that happen to Kasai, Uncle Yoshiro, or even Satoshi-kun. I was the only one who should be punished. So I just needed to bear the pain. Ow! Ah! I wasn't just breathing heavily anymore. I was also moaning faintly, ready to scream at any moment. That's right. Make it quick. This wasn't torture, so I didn't have to prolong the moment of pain. I should do it in one swift blow. That way, my pain and fear would be minimized. I raised my right arm. Quickly. The pain would be lessened if I did it in one stroke. It'd be much more painful if I messed it up. I held my breath. I felt as if my body was frozen. I was choking. The chills crept up my spine. Don't be afraid, Shion. Fingernails are just a tiny fraction of the whole body. Just 1 square centimeter. I could do this. I could bear it. Ah! I smacked my right hand onto the handle of the device. Ah! I sensed the noise through my body instead of through my ears. At the same time, I felt a pain I'd never experienced before. A moment later, the pain pulsated with my heartbeat. Oh! Oh! I clenched my teeth. I felt like my teeth were cracking. I tightly shut my eyes until my eyeballs got squeezed up. The pain wouldn't fade. Rather, it swelled with my blood pressure. I felt as though it was bloating like a balloon. Timidly, I opened my eyes. I found that my little finger wasn't really drenched in blood. It was bleeding, but not much. Certainly not enough to explain how much it hurt. My fingernail was open, just like the hood of a car. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was overwhelming. It occurred to me that I'd only done 1 out of the 3. Did I have to repeat this 2 more times? Did I have to remove the nails from my ring and middle finger as well? Good thing it's not toenails, those never grow right back. That is so true. Toenails take forever. It's also maybe harder to do it, because usually they're not as long as fingernails, right? So it'd be harder to get the device in to, like, properly clamp it down. I looked at the hag and at Mion, begging for mercy. But they were just silently staring at me, as if the show had only just begun. I saw no hint of mercy in their eyes. They wouldn't be changing their minds. Since they said 3, it had to be 3. They wouldn't forgive me until I removed 2 more fingernails. Mion, look! Isn't this enough? It really hurts, you know that? You see that in my eyes, don't you? It really hurts. Mion answered, still wearing a cold look. Shion, you can't keep going? She didn't mean that it was sufficient. What she meant is that the others would have to take the remaining punishment if I didn't. I knew that. I really did know. I'll do it. This is easy. You sadists. This doesn't scare me. This doesn't hurt. Ah! I quickly moved the metal beak and set it on my ring finger, and smacked it with no hesitation. Instead of making it quick, maybe I was just rushing out of fear. I'd messed up. The torture tool had clipped just the tip of my fingernail. The pain, however, was equal. I couldn't believe I'd only chipped it. Did I have to do it again? Did I have to continue removing the nail from my ring finger? That much pain? Again? Again? Shion. No. I don't want to do it. I couldn't bear it anymore. I started crying shamelessly. I can't take it anymore. It's too painful. Forgive me, please. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. They didn't seem to hear my voice. It felt as though there was an invisible barrier between us. They showed no mercy. They were just here to witness this ritual. So, rather than sympathetic, they looked amazed by my screw-up. Mion walked up to me and whispered to my crying face, Shion, there's just a bit more to go. Hang in there. No, 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 no! I can't do this! It really hurts! It really does! Oh, oh, Mion shook her head, then signaled the subordinates. They came from behind me. They covered my head with something like a knit cap. It was a blindfold. One of them pinned me in a Nelson hold, restricting my movement. No! Stop it! No! I couldn't overpower the guy behind me. Then I felt something strange on my left hand. The other guy was doing something with a torture tool. He put the metal beak between my ring finger and its fingernail. No! Mom, help me! Mom! Ah! My left hand was fixed in the restraints, so I couldn't put up much protest anyway. But even that left hand was pressed down by his rough palms until it hurt, robbing it of the freedom even to tremble. They had no hesitation. It was made very clear to me how merciless people could be. Robbed of my vision, all I could do was clench my teeth against the pain assailing me. If there was anything I was thankful for, it was that he was well practiced and had ripped off both of my fingernails cleanly. Pain and screaming might induce narcotic chemicals in the brain. While screaming, I started losing consciousness. Surely they can't just end it here. I woke up. My memories were missing. I couldn't remember how I got back to my room. I held my head with both hands. My left hand was bandaged. The fingers that had had their nails removed had swollen like hot dogs. I'd paid with those 3 fingernails for what I did. The hag had said something after the punishment, but I didn't remember any of it. Nailed it? Oh my gosh! But you're so right. I was taken to a hospital in Okinomiya. The car shook on the way, adding extra pain on top of what I already felt. Somebody gave me some aspirin. They worked just like they said on TV. But they didn't last more than 10 minutes. I swallowed the pills without water. While I was spacing out in the waiting lounge, Kasai showed up. He probably came to check if I was all right. I obviously wasn't. He must have understood that from my bandaged left arm dangling from my shoulder. Kasai, on the other hand, looked just fine. At least on the outside. I was relieved that my sacrifice had meant something. Kasai didn't say anything. I couldn't tell if he wanted to tell me something or not because he looked so emotionless. Kasai? Yes? He paused shortly before answering. I could tell he was upset. I didn't regret revealing my true identity in order to protect Satoshi-kun. But I hadn't wanted Kasai or Uncle Yoshiro to be hurt. I had been contradicting myself. Do you know how Uncle Yoshiro is doing? No. I'm sure he's all right. Because he's strong. Even so, you should apologize to him. Okay. I wanted to ask him about Satoshi-kun too. I wondered if he was captured or harassed by the Sonozaki family because of me. But I was hesitant to ask Kasai. After all, I'd chosen Satoshi-kun over them. Was Satoshi-kun all right? I hoped he wouldn't get caught or incarcerated somewhere. I paid the hospital bill and Kasai gave me a ride home. I finally realized that somebody was knocking on my door. Shion-san, it's not healthy to sleep so much. It was Kasai. He put some side dishes on a table, and we started nibbling at them. How do you feel? Depressed. Have you been resting? Have you been eating? I've been eating the stuff left in the fridge. Otherwise, I've been either sleeping or staring at the ceiling. It had been 3 days. I'd just been lying down since then. I woke up every now and then in my shallow sleep, but I didn't feel like getting up or thinking. I felt like I'd just been floating the whole time. My appetite was gone, but it came back with the smell of the food Kasai brought. I wasn't able to think of anything to talk to Kasai about, so I just ate silently. I got a call from Mion-san yesterday. She was saying she called you a few times, but never got through. The moment I heard Mion's name, I felt my wounds throb. But I didn't stop Kasai, who continued. Because you've paid up, the family decided to close the matter. You will officially withdraw from the academy and transfer to a school in Okinomiya. They're finally acknowledging my right to make my own decisions, huh? Indeed. They said you could live as yourself now, under a few conditions. You will stay away from Hinamizawa. You won't pretend to be Mion Sonozaki. You won't show up in public places, and so on. This means, in exchange for acknowledging me, they don't want me to hang around. That's correct. Of course, it is only temporary, until things cool down. There is no set duration, but I think you should stay inconspicuous, at least until the end of the year. It'd be good enough to just live in Okinomiya quietly, the way it was before. Kasai put on a sad smile. I smiled back at him likewise. Before the conversation ended, I should ask him what I wanted to know. How's Satoshi-kun doing? I wished that Kasai would assure me of his safety right away. But he didn't answer like that. Kasai? Is he alright? Shion-san. Kasai put his chopsticks down. The family wants you to forget about him. What? Shion-san, I don't want to get in an argument with you, so I will not get into the details. I'm only relaying to you what the family wants. What are you talking about? What details, Kasai? Kasai pretended as though he didn't hear me and started eating again. I'd never seen him get so stubborn like this. The Sonozaki family had been using the Hojo family as a scapegoat. They must have concluded that a Sonozaki shouldn't be in love with a Hojo. I didn't like that. Satoko is a friend of Mion's at school. Would it be okay if Satoshi-kun and I were the same gender? Anyway, if I did something conspicuous again, they might do something to him for real. Just like they forced me to remove my own fingernails. The Sonozaki family wouldn't hesitate. They'd torture him if need be. Maybe, if I really loved him, I should stay away. Satoshi-kun wouldn't show up in Okinomiya unless he rejoins the Hinamizawa fighters. I'd have to pretend to be Mion if I wanted to go to Hinamizawa, but I didn't think she'd cooperate with me. Even if she did, it'd be sometime down the road. Even if they told me not to see him, I already had no means of doing that again. Oh, wait. Mion gave me his number a little while ago. I could call him, and maybe ask to meet with him secretly. But if I got caught again, they wouldn't cut me any slack. Should I risk it? What the hell did I even want from Satoshi-kun? Kasai, can I be alone for a moment? Kasai started putting away his food in a rush, assuming that I wanted him to leave. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. Take your time and finish your food. I just want to take a walk. You can't lock this place up if I don't step out with you. Kasai quickly put away his meal and followed me out. Just to be clear, I'm not going out to see Satoshi-kun, alright? I see. I turned around and started walking. My destination was rather pathetic. It was the toy store that sold the giant teddy bear. I couldn't deny that I was somewhat expecting Satoshi-kun to pass by there. I couldn't stop myself from looking at the faces of passerbys who resembled him. I looked into the store's window. The teddy bear was gone. Congrats, Satoshi-kun. Looks like you were able to buy it. His evil aunt had died, and his wicked uncle was living with his mistress. Satoshi-kun succeeded in fulfilling his duty as a big brother by buying his little sister that huge teddy bear. There was nobody left to hurt him. He was free from his tiresome efforts. He was completely free from pain. Over time, he'd retrieve his smile, and he'd go back to being the Satoshi-kun I love. But I wouldn't be there with him. I heard a car honking. I didn't think it was honking at me at first, but it was so persistent that I had to look up. The person waving at me from their car was Irie. He was waving at me all carefree, oblivious to my feelings. Sonozaki-san, long time no see. Oh, are you meeting up with Hojo-san? No, I'm not. I know he looks into that store's windows all the time, so I assumed you were expecting him here or something. No, I'm just passing by. Looks like he was able to buy the teddy bear. Irie seemed to know about the teddy bear as well. He smiled upon seeing its empty display space.
Yesterday was Satoko-chan's birthday. He must have celebrated it with that teddy bear.
He doesn't have to work so hard anymore, huh?
Indeed.
Did he turn in his resignation to the Hinamizawa fighters?
Oh, does that even exist? I never received one. Did you, Sonozaki-san?
No, I didn't.
So that means he still belongs to the team. I think he'll be back after things have settled down. But I know he'll be sad if he doesn't see you there.
Idiot teased me. He's a grown-up after all. He must have been trying to sound optimistic, because he knew I was feeling a bit down.
You can come back to the team anytime you want. It might as well be empty without you. I'm thinking of providing you with a maid costume once you get back.
I burst into laughter. Irie sure hadn't changed. Oh, I almost forgot. I could tell you my name now. Sorry, Coach. I was lying about my identity. I'm not Mion. I'm her twin sister, Shion. I've been pretending to be her for a few reasons.
Eh? What? You're Mion-san's twin sister?
He was totally taken aback. I burst into laughter again. Yes, I'm Shion Sonozaki. I'm forced to live quietly because my grandmother hates me, though.
I never realized that Mion-san had a twin sister. Nah ha ha ha! Same here.
Suddenly, a loud voice interrupted us. The voice sounded mean and greasy, unlike Irie's. It was him, Oishi.
Hello, Dr. Irie. Thank you for your cooperation last night. Don't mention it. I wasn't of much help.
They were just going through the motions. It was obvious that they hated each other. Irie whispered to me.
I'm leaving now. Do you want to get in my car? I could drive you home.
Irie figured that Oishi was after me, so he was giving me a chance to slip away. Looking at Oishi's face, it was clear that his focus was on me, not Irie. He probably intended to interrogate me until my testimony broke. I was sure I could talk my way out of it, but it'd just be a waste of time. All right, Coach. Let's get going.
Oh, are you two going somewhere together? Yes. We're on our way to get some stuff for the team. We have to drop by a few places, so will you excuse us?
Irie bowed. I followed suit. I had to admire how good he was at lying. He's a grown-up after all. Oishi seemed to know it was a lie. But he didn't have a warrant, so he couldn't stop us. I moved to get into Irie's car.
How are your wounds, Shion Sonozaki-san?
I gasped when I heard that. My left hand was bandaged. It was unsightly, so I'd kept it in my pocket. There was no way Oishi could have been able to see it.
They'll heal with no problems if they don't get infected. I tore my fingernails off a couple times myself when I was a kid. But look, they look beautiful now, don't they?
Men's fingernails shouldn't look beautiful. That gives me the creeps. Oishi scratched his head and chuckled. He's supposed to be one of the best cops at the Okinomiya PD, and he knows about all the underground activities in the region. He must have heard about my payment from somewhere. Still, that happened in the secret basement of the Sonozaki main house. I couldn't underestimate this guy's sources. Thank you for your kind words. We'll be going now. Excuse us.
Shion Sonozaki-san, why don't we get coffee together sometime?
What? Are you hitting on me?
If you like.
Ew. Sorry. Time flies. I can't waste any of that precious time on things that don't interest me.
Ah, you got me there. How about this, then? You can leave any time if you get bored of talking to me. I won't stop you. How does that sound?
I don't mind you talking, but I won't talk back. I doubt you could call it a conversation.
Yes, that'd be fine. You could just listen, and I'll talk. You can just listen to an old man ramble while sipping on a cup of coffee.
He was being strangely persistent. It didn't look like he was trying to poke a hole in my statement. What would he even talk about? I got a bit curious, even though I was still skeptical. Coach, I think I'll go with the old man instead. Shion-san. I winked at him and told him not to worry. Idiot didn't insist. He got in his car and drove off. Oishi backed his car up so I could get in. I hopped in the back seat since I didn't want to sit next to him. Are we really going to a cafe?
If you could direct me to one with no connection to your family, that'd be great.
Why don't you just take me to the station then? Oishi carefully checked for oncoming traffic, then started driving. Oishi took me to the police station, as I thought he might. If he had taken me to a nice cafe, he would have scored some points. But whatever.
I thought it would be more convenient if we came here. You could still go home if you get bored.
Try your best not to bore me then. Do you want me to go into the station hand? Do you want me to go into the station hand in hand with you? Oishi chuckled and got out of the car. He escorted me inside the station. I thought he'd take me to an interrogation room, but instead he took me to an office of the investigation division. Officers in both suits and uniforms were working at their desks, answering phones. There was a desk with a plate that said Section Manager, and nearby there were couches and a table. Oishi told me to sit on the couch and started making some instant coffee. I'd never been to this part of the police station. I looked around in curiosity.
Did you think I'd take you to an interrogation room?
Oishi brought over a tray with coffee cups on it. You're treating me better than I expected. I thought you'd whip me or something.
My tastes don't run that way. Nah ha 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 ha.
So? I thought you wanted to talk.
All right, I'll cut to the chase. Are you in love with Satoshi Hojo-san?
What? It's getting boring already. I'm going home.
Nah ha 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 ha. Okay, please forget that.
Oishi must have known why I had to remove my fingernails. He wasn't trying to confirm that I liked Satoshi-kun. What he was really saying was that he knew already. I already talked to Detective Kumagai about Satoshi-kun's alibi that day.
Of course, I read Kumagai-kun's report. I know you were with him.
I'll just repeat the same statement no matter how many times you ask. Don't think you could poke holes in it.
No, that's not what I want. You're a smart person. I know that wouldn't work for you.
I wonder what you're after. You're wasting your time if you want information on Satoshi-kun. There's nothing more to talk about. This is boring me after all. I'm going home, since that was our agreement. Excuse me. I got up off the couch.
Shion-san, I did want to get Satoshi-san's alibi from you. I admit it.
That's it then. It's boring. I'm going home. I turned around and started walking. Oishi didn't get anxious, but instead spoke a little louder.
But Shion-san, what I want to ask you about is his alibi for yesterday, not the day of the murder.
His alibi for yesterday? Why? What does that have to do with his aunt's death?
It's because Satoshi-kun has been missing since then.
What?
Didn't you know he went missing?
I couldn't say anything, but my expression answered Oishi's question anyway. What's going on? Missing? What?
Why don't you take a seat?
What do you mean Satoshi-kun has gone missing? What the hell?
We only know one thing for sure. He withdrew all of his savings at an ATM in the Okinomiya post office before 3 p.m. yesterday. We don't know his whereabouts after that.
I knew why he withdrew that money. He wanted to buy Satoko's birthday present. Yes, he definitely bought that teddy bear yesterday.
This is just my guess, but I think he skipped town with that money.
You mean he used the money to run away? That's stupid. He was saving to buy Satoko a birthday present. He bought a big expensive teddy bear from the toy store. He never used that money to skip town.
Yes, the most expensive teddy bear that the toy store in that toy store was sold. But we can't confirm that it was Satoshi-kun who bought it.
Why don't you ask the clerk? Satoshi-kun and I reserved that teddy bear together.
Oh, I had a bad feeling. That old man who was watching the store was sleeping when we were there. He looked very senile. Maybe he was also watching that store on that day, and even though Satoshi-kun bought the teddy bear, he didn't remember. Always she put on a wry smile. It looked like he'd already tried to question that old man.
Anyway, it's Satoshi-kun who bought that teddy bear. He must have saved just enough to buy it, so he shouldn't have been able to run away after. That's nonsense.
All right, let's say he really did buy the teddy bear. Then why didn't he come home with it? At that point, I felt as though my heart had turned to ice. Satoshi-kun had been working hard to buy that teddy bear, even though he was under extreme mental and physical stress. After all that, he finally managed to buy it. It's unthinkable that somebody else just showed up and bought the same teddy bear. The teddy bear was gone because Satoshi-kun bought it. Nobody else. But if so, Satoshi-kun should have given it to Satoko. But though he bought a present for her, he didn't come home. He didn't come home? That wasn't possible. He would have gone straight home with that teddy bear. He wouldn't think of running away after buying the teddy bear. Even though Satoshi-kun wanted to run away from the police, he'd never leave without giving Satoko her present. Anyway, it must have been Satoshi-kun who bought the teddy bear. I could say that with 100% certainty. The question was, why didn't he bring it home? That teddy bear was huge. It wouldn't fit into the basket of a bicycle. He might have bought some straps to tie it to his bike. He wouldn't have thought of running away on a wobbly bicycle like that. He necessarily had to go home after buying the teddy bear from the store after withdrawing the money. Nothing could have happened when he was going between the ATM and the toy store. It was impossible. Nobody else could possibly have bought that teddy bear. Never. That teddy bear had been sitting in the showcase up until that day. Everybody could see it when they passed by. But nobody wanted it. It's impossible that it could have been somebody else. There should be no question that he went to the toy store after he withdrew the money. What about the route between the toy store and his home? There shouldn't be any question there either. He shouldn't have been able to do anything with that huge toy. He shouldn't even have thought of making a stop on the way. So he must have headed home, right after he bought the teddy bear. But nobody saw him after that. It was simple then. Satoshi-kun went missing on his way home from the toy store. He went missing? What did that mean? I was sure he killed his aunt. He's not that shrewd. Maybe he couldn't bear the pressure from the police. Was he resigned to the idea that the police were going to arrest him soon, regardless of my help? Did he decide to run away? Did he think that he should disappear until things cooled down, rather than get arrested? That was definitely, absolutely impossible. It was impossible that he came to that conclusion on his way home from the toy store. Even if he did, he would have waited until he gave Satoko her birthday present. Satoshi-kun loved Satoko. He shouldn't have spoiled her like that, but anyway, he always tried to be a good brother to her. So he'd never disappear before going home. I felt as though the ice was cutting through my heart, expanding the frost. If Satoshi-kun didn't disappear by his own will, the answer was simple. Satoshi-kun disappeared by somebody else's will. Was Satoshi-kun eliminated? That's really stupid, old man. I thought I could shake off the frost in my heart if I laughed loudly enough. I kept laughing until it happened. I kept laughing and laughing. All the cops in the room stared at me. They thought I'd gone crazy. I didn't care what they thought. I kept laughing until it turned into a cough.
I finished laughing and took a sip of lukewarm coffee. I felt as though the frost in my heart had spread all throughout my guts. I was chilled to the bone. I was freezing, and my fingers shook as I held the coffee cup.
Shion-san, please listen to me without interrupting. What I'm about to tell you is only a hypothesis. It's all just a theory. You might start laughing in the middle because it may sound ridiculous. But I want you to hear me out. Can you do that?
Whatever. Just talk. I was feeling far too cold. My teeth were chattering. I felt as though my brain had frozen as well. I lost my ability to think. I couldn't do anything by myself. I could only do as Oishi told me. What he was going to tell me might be the worst possible theory, but I had to listen to it.
I know that Satoshi-kun's and Satoko-san's aunt was abusing them, especially Satoko-san. In my opinion, it's normal that Satoshi-kun started thinking about murdering his aunt, because he was just a human being. I had to deny that Satoshi-kun murdered her, but what Oishi was saying was true. I couldn't deny his hypothesis right away. I just kept silent. This is only a hypothesis, all right? Please don't be upset. And no interruptions. Agreed?
I know! Just go on!
Satoshi Hojo planned the murder of his aunt and executed it. We have no proof, okay? It's all theoretical.
All right, I heard. Just keep talking.
I'll switch the subject now. Shion-san, you were forbidden from having a relationship with Satoshi-kun, weren't you? They told you to stay away from him, correct? I believe the reason behind that is not that your family hated the Hojos, but that they didn't like the fact that you were involved with a murder suspect.
That is actually possible. After all, when I was pretending to be Mion, I already had a connection with Satoshi-kun. Before anyone knew it was Shion who was spending time around him. I could have been accused when I was helping out the Hinamizawa fighters if the relationship between the Hojos and the Sonozakis was the problem. It wouldn't be difficult for the Sonozaki family to know that Satoshi-kun murdered his aunt, if it happened in Hinamizawa. Maybe one of them even saw the murder. The Sonozaki family didn't like that I was in love with a murderer. They had to step in.
Also, you're known to not give up easily, aren't you? Which means, even if the Sonozaki family threatened you or ripped off your nails, you still wouldn't cut ties with Satoshi-kun, would you?
I couldn't deny that. I lost most of my means to access Hinamizawa, so my ties to Satoshi-kun were essentially cut, true. But I still knew Satoshi-kun's phone number, and I expected him to rejoin the Hinamizawa fighters eventually.
I believe your family knew that a few threats would never be enough for you to break ties with Satoshi-kun. They could threaten you all they liked to no avail. So, their only option would be to do something about the other person, wouldn't it?
What do you mean, do something? What would they do? What? What? If threatening me was useless, then they'd do something about Satoshi-kun. What would they have done? If they pulled something, then wouldn't that interrupt his path from the toy store to home? Toy store to home. Toy store to X to home. What's X? What is X? X marks the spot where his path was interrupted. But what interrupted it? Why couldn't Satoshi-kun make it home from the toy store if something interrupted him? Why? What is X? X! I ran out of air, became dizzy, and then collapsed. The floor felt cold. I felt no pain. I'd fallen to the floor like a plastic doll. Oishi and some others rushed over to me and helped me up.
Calm down, Shion-san. We're not certain that Satoshi-kun was killed yet.
You're not certain he was killed? What are you talking about? Don't you know about the torture room where they forced me to rip off my fingernails? Don't you know that they say there are prison cells and a well for disposing of corpses in the back? If the Sonozaki family wants to eliminate somebody, they definitely kill them in that torture room and dump the body down there. You're not certain? Are you dumb? Is your brain made of tofu? If I were in the hag's position, I'd kill him for sure. I wouldn't let him get away. If I would kill him, then the hag would definitely kill him.
Shion-san, please calm down. This is unconfirmed, but I have information that somebody witnessed a young runaway male at Nagoya Station, who took a train from there to Tokyo. The clothes didn't match, but it's possible that he changed what he was wearing to hide from the police. It's still possible that it was him.
Is he alive? Is he?
This is also a theory, but let me go on. Your twin sister Mion-san is the closest person to Oryo Sonozaki, correct? I'm assuming that Mion-san stopped Oryo when she suggested murdering Satoshi-kun furtively.
Mion? That was possible. She could have tried to calm things down out of pity for me. That idiot was always so indecisive. She should have been clear on if she wanted to save him or not. But she probably seemed vague about that. She must have persuaded the hag to reduce the punishment to banishment instead of death, just to avoid feeling guilty.
I believe that the Sonozaki family contacted Satoshi-kun. They probably told him that they couldn't cover up the murder and told him to disappear somewhere far away. They forced him to be more accurate.
Satoshi-kun would have rejected that. He would never leave Satoko behind.
I agree with you. Satoshi-kun was working at the places Mion-san referred him to, wasn't he? So the family knew that he had enough money for a getaway. But he'd never use it for anything other than
buying the teddy bear.
You're right. He must have gone straight to the toy store after he withdrew the money. But what if the teddy bear was already sold when he got there?
That would have been a very desolate situation. He'd been working hard. While his aunt abused him, he worked at many different jobs. The money was worth all that pain. He went to the toy store with that money in order to buy his beloved sister a present. That was the only purpose for that money. He must have looked for the teddy bear as he'd always done, but it was gone. He wouldn't have gone into a panic right away, because he was always so optimistic. He might have thought the store was wrapping the gift for him because he told them that he'd pick it up that day. He must have gone into the store joyously. I couldn't guess exactly what happened next. My heart would tear up if I tried to imagine it anyway.
Tear up or tear up?
My heart would tear up?
Maybe.
Why didn't they have it, even though he had it reserved? Did the old man understand the situation, or was he just zoning out? Maybe it would have been the same even if it wasn't the old man who was at the store at the time. If a bunch of fierce-looking subordinates from the Sonozaki family went in and showed them the money, nobody could have rejected it. Satoshi-kun must have sunk into silence. No matter how hard he complained, the teddy bear was gone. He probably never even considered that his dream might be taken away. He must have been wobbling his way home in sorrow, leaning on the telephone poles every now and then. It was the day he wanted Satoko to be happy the most. He couldn't get the present she wanted the most. He probably didn't think of getting another gift, because it was unimaginable that he couldn't get that teddy bear. He might have imagined how Satoko would react when she found out he had no present for her. He must have looked unbelievably sad and empty. The money he'd been saving meant nothing anymore. Satoshi-kun never cried, even at his toughest moments. Did he even know how to cry? It was always Satoko who was crying. So, Satoshi-kun never learned how to cry, and he grew up that way. Did you know? People shed sadness from their hearts with tears. Satoshi-kun wasn't even allowed to do that. Even though his heart was filled with sorrow, he couldn't let it out.
You insisted he wouldn't leave Satoko-san behind, didn't you? But think, what if the Sonozaki family told him that they'd look after her after his disappearance?
After Satoshi-kun found out the teddy bear was gone, all he had left were some crumpled bills. The family told him it was just a matter of time before the police got to him. They told him to run away. They said they'd take care of Satoko. Satoshi-kun didn't feel like seeing his sister. He wandered and found himself at Okinomiya Station. He must have been apologizing to Satoko so many times in his mind. He swore to come back someday. He headed to Nagoya, and then to Tokyo. But that meant he's alive. He's alive. I should be able to see him again someday. He must be coming back, so I'll definitely see him again.
I assume that the Sonozaki family set up some place for him to stay. Satoshi-kun must have gone there.
So, he's safe. He's coming back someday, right?
Oishi looked up at the ceiling and stretched. He didn't answer me. On June 24th, 1982, Satoshi Hojo went missing. There's a possibility that he ran away, as he was the prime suspect of the murder that happened on the 20th of the same month. Allegedly, someone resembling him was seen at Nagoya Station, embarking on a train headed to Tokyo, but the truth is unknown. No one has seen him since. As a matter of fact, no one even knows if he's still alive. How very interesting. Notebook page 34. The information that Satoshi-kun might have headed to Tokyo hasn't been verified. It started as follows. A young man came to the lost and found window looking for his wallet. The station employee asked him to write down his name on the form. Then the young man started writing Hojo as his name, but he stopped in the middle, crumpled the form, and wrote a totally different name on another form. Another station employee witnessed a similar-looking young man rushing into the train heading to Tokyo. The employee from the Lost and Found and the employee who was on the platform talked about the suspicious young man in the locker room. There's so many details in the VN compared to the anime. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It was a VN first, and they definitely have to cut stuff if they want to make the anime episodes like 20 minutes, right? So they just take the important bits. That was all. The wallet of the man named Hojo was never reported as found to the Lost and Found office. So boy lost his money on the way. At first, I thought Oishi's theory that the Sonozaki family banished Satoshi-kun from Hinamizawa and looked after Satoko in return was bogus. But thinking about it now, it doesn't seem too far-fetched. After all, Satoko Hojo started living with Rika Furude after Satoshi-kun's disappearance. Rika Furude isn't just a regular girl. She was the head of the Furude family, one of the 3 families. The head of the Kimiyoshi family is Rika Furude's guardian. The Sonozaki family probably couldn't step in due to having been officially opposed to the Hojo family, but Satoko Hojo is in the custody of the 3 families now. Even though the Hojo family was severely ostracized during the dam conflict, Satoko Hojo was now under protection. It seems as though only Satoko was exempted from blame. Why was she spared even though Satoshi-kun wasn't? Was she spared, though? I find that questionable. But we're gonna switch over to drawing now.